Felicitations, malefactors! Greetings! Welcome to the official Film Snob podcast. The name is pending, so we may have a different name once the actual podcast starts. Hello, I am Sam Bradley. I wanted to give a bit of an intro to the podcast. Me and a few of my friends are starting up. I wanted to just give a quick top 10 movie list from 2019. I was going to make a 2020 list, but I was reviewing all of the movies that I had actually seen that came out in 2020, and the list was about 11. So it would be pretty tight to try and give a good analysis of why these are my top 10, because I would basically shave the worst one off, and I know there are a few on there that I wouldn't consider good movies that I would not want to put on a top 10 list. So I'm going to wait and do a top 20 list later, perhaps with a few more of the gents. Just real quick, I wanted to shout out another preview for the podcast we will be doing on March 6th. We're going to do a film draft for the movies that came out in 2010. More details will follow on that. I just wanted to shout out that, but that should be a fun little thing if you're interested in that, or if you enjoy this little audio recording that I'm doing here. So let's jump into the list. Now, my top 10 list, like I said, it was movies that all came out in 2019. I went through the list of all the movies on IMDb that were listed that came out in 2019, wrote down all the ones I had seen, and there was quite a few, and I just kind of had to narrow it down to the ones that I personally liked the best, slash that I think were genuinely well-made movies. So let's jump in. Our number 10 for me is a movie called In the Tall Grass. Now, a lot of people may have seen this, but maybe not have enjoyed it. I could see how some people would consider it maybe not that great of a movie, but I really liked it. It kind of has a Lovecraftian, horror type element to it, which I really like. That's probably why it's on the top 10 list. I thought it was really well done in that regard. Yeah, and it's just a fun. I'm going to try to do a non-spoiler review of all of these movies, just kind of give a general overview of what I thought, why I enjoyed them, and why I would recommend them. Yeah, if you kind of enjoy that Lovecraftian type storytelling, definitely check this out. Has some interesting things going on. So the premise, I'll also pitch a premise for each of these, just so people can get interested. So the premise is a couple's driving out in the middle of the country, and there's like this massive cornfield like across the street from a church, and they pull over and they hear someone shouting help, like help, I need help, I'm lost, out in the middle of the cornfield. So they end up going to find the person, and then themselves get lost in kind of like this endless maze. Um, and it was actually really interesting. I liked it. I liked it more than I thought I would. Like, just reading the premise and things of that nature, I was just like, this will probably be like kind of a, movie I can watch while doing other things. Not really pay attention to it, but it did kind of suck me in a bit, so that's why I put it on the list. Number 9 is The Lighthouse, starring Robert Pattinson and Willem Dafoe. Very like stage play-esque kind of drama thriller. It's about these two guys who basically are stuck in a lighthouse because they're like, it's like the passing of the guard. They've taken over the job from the last guys, and they're stuck here for months or whatever. They have to maintain the lighthouse, and it's basically just them two. And it's actually, I thought it was very well acted. There are some really weird and like graphic scenes in it, so if that's something that you're not like real into, might want to give it a pass, but I really liked it. Dynamic that the two build between each other, and just kind of like you see the kind of the house cabin fever starts to set in, and how each of them, how each of them is like coping with it and that sort of thing, and it's really good. I would definitely recommend that one. Number 8 on my list is Peanut Butter Falcon. This is a movie that I actually saw with the some of the guys that I'm doing the podcast with. But it is again, I enjoyed it more than I thought I would. But it was premise is Shia LaBeouf is like kind of down on his luck, kind of rapscallion, and he runs into guy with Down syndrome, and the guy with Down syndrome wants to become like a professional wrestler, and it's like him and Shia LaBeouf's like little journey together, trying to find this wrestler guy that he really looks up to in order to get his shot in the ring, and it's actually very heartwarming, and it's is pretty funny. I really enjoyed like the humor and lightheartedness, but there definitely is like serious moments to it, and I think they just did a really great job. Both of the main actors in it were great, and like the supporting actress. But yeah, it was great. I really liked it. Number 7 that I'm moving on to is Uncut Gems. More dramatic, serious role for Adam Sandler, which is always interesting to see him step away from the goofy kind of gross out comedy stuff. But I really enjoyed his performance in this, and it was really good. Like story about, it's a guy who he owns like a jeweler shop or whatever. He does some maybe shadier business deals with different things, but the whole movie is just kind of this culmination of basically all the poor choices he has made and how they've just compounded on each other. And I think it's a really good like look at like greed, or the that desire for I need more or better, like just how that can lead you down like this destructive path. And it was really good. I liked that sort of a thing. But yeah, it's good. It is definitely for a more adult audience. It is kind of dark. It's not very uplifting movie, I would say. So if just keeping that in mind, but I definitely would recommend it if you like sort of that drama thriller category. So yeah, next movie we're going to move on to for number 6 is The Last Black Man in San Francisco. Now this was like a movie I saw with um, the guys at um, like a theater, is like an independent film, I think, um, that we saw, and it was like a movie I had never heard of, and they're like, "Hey, you want to go see this movie?" And I was like, "Sure, why not?" Um, but it was actually really good. The premise is this guy who lives in San Francisco. There's like this like big house that he was like, this house belonged to my grandparents. Once the like richer people moved into the neighborhood, they took over everything, and all of the like poor income like people got kind of pushed out. So it's like him and his friend who are kind of like basically homeless. They like work on repairing parts of this house, even though the people that live there are like, please stop coming here. At first, I didn't like the ending. I'm not going to go into it because I wanted to keep the spoiler free, but uh, the ending at first I didn't really like it, but after like further like thought and like analyzing the movie, I tended to like it more, like because the overall I think premise of the movie, or like the point, is like breaking out of the bonds that you put on yourself. Again, I can't really go much into more into the movie without giving away like spoilers and stuff, so I won't. I just recommend it if you can find a way to watch it. It is really good. Number 5 is Joker. I wasn't sure if I wanted to put it this high on the list, but I feel like all of my movies, like I would say like 7 to 5 here, are all pretty close. I think this might not be fair, but I think the only reason Joker got higher up here on 5 was just because my inner nerd may have influenced this being a little higher on the list than I probably would have normally put it. But I don't think there's anything wrong with that. This is a list of movies that I enjoyed, so I'm not objectively saying that these are the top 10 best movies of 2019. It's very, very subjective list here. Um, so, Joker. I'm sure everyone knows pretty much what the premise of the movie is. It's about the kind of the uh, how the Joker became the Joker. Um, and I thought that Joaquin Phoenix's performance was very good. I enjoyed this take on this is how he became the Joker, kind of like harkens similar to like one really bad day can turn like a normal like guy into the normal in quotes guy into the Joker. Um, but it was just an interesting look at the character. I really enjoyed it. I think it was an interesting kind of look at like mental illness and specifically that the illness of like the laughing that he has. Like that's an interesting take on the character more so than the Joker is just bonkers insane and that's why he laughs at all the stuff. So I thought that was interesting. Um anyways, so we'll move on to number 4, which is actually I think it very aptly Toy Story 4 in the 4th slot. Now, a lot of people might be like, why is this so high up on the list? Because I think a lot of people kind of give animated movies like the short end of the stick and they're like, oh, they're just for kids and you can't like glean stuff out of them. But I actually really like Toy Story 4. Other than my number 1 pick on this list, this is the only movie on the list that I watched more than once and like enjoyed it like thoroughly. So that's why I think I had to put it up so high, especially like the Forky character, how he is like he's literally trash, and I can see how like that would be really impactful to kids or other people if they feel like not attractive or not like deserving of like other people's like attention or friendship. They would consider themselves trash. Like that's just a way, a term people use on the internet. It's like I'm trash or you're trash at this, that sort of thing. I don't know if they did that on purpose, but I think it correlates really well with like modern lingo and whatnot, that somebody who considers themselves trash, or in this case he is literally trash, um has value in the eyes of somebody, like especially like the little girl, like he becomes her favorite toy. I think it that's one of the main messages. Don't look at yourself as less than just because you you know are different or whatever. I think that's kind of one of the main messages of it, and I really really like that. And also I just really enjoyed the whole story and like the characters and the thing. It was very heartwarming at the end. Pixar does a very good job of that, and with all of the, I would say a lot of movies and stuff tend to be towards the dark and depressing side recently, so I really enjoyed the heartwarming kind of thing from that. So moving on to number 3 is Parasite. Um Now the reason this isn't like it won Best Picture and a bunch of other awards, I really liked it. I thought it was a very well made movie. I really enjoyed it. There are a couple things in it that like I thought like, oh, this is gonna happen, and then it didn't, and I can't say that like I was a little disappointed that it didn't take like a bigger twist, even though like I mean the overall like kind of end of the movie and stuff, and I was hoping that the payoff to the movie would have been a little more hopeful or uplifting. But yes, very well made movie. I can see why it got Best Picture. So premise, for those who haven't seen it, is it's basically about this poor family, and the son gets a job tutoring the daughter of this rich family. what they do is they kind of, work the system a bit and do some things so that all of the members of this poor family, so the mom, dad, son, daughter, can all end up working for this rich family, but they're all doing it secretly so that the rich family doesn't know that they're basically paying this entire family to work for them, which, it's like they're playing the system so that they can make a bunch of money because they were really poor. So it's kind of this like division in class, but I think it does a somewhat of a good job too of being like, at least in that sort of sense, like it doesn't pit the rich people as like, oh, they're evil, like evil rich people oppress the poor. Like there's like a thing of that's like there's this division, but like you also see that like the rich family are a family, like they're just people, and like they happen to have like, a higher status because the dad just has a really good job or whatever, like, maybe they got lucky or opportunity, sort of a thing like that. But yeah, it's just really interesting. There are a few like little twists and stuff in it that I didn't expect, that again I thought were good. I thought they were going to go in a different way. Definitely worth a watch. But yeah, it is also foreign, so if you don't mind reading subtitles, definitely check it out. Number 2 pick is Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Now, I was really thinking about this, and at first I was going to put it lower on the list, and then I was thinking about the movie, and like when I was actually watching the movie, I feel like I really was invested in it and enjoyed it because I like the characters. It is a Quentin Tarantino movie, and I generally like his stuff. So, yeah, I just really liked, because I think I liked it more after I did a little bit more research on some of the characters. Because going into it, there is kind of a plot line with like Sharon Tate and like the Manson cult and that whole thing that happened that I didn't really know much about going in to watch the movie. I didn't even know that was going to be a part of it. So I was a little confused, but I mean, I was really invested in like Leonardo DiCaprio and Brad Pitt's characters in it. I knew the movie was building up to some sort of, violent thing, because that's generally something that happens in a Tarantino movies. You have a violent thing, but for the most part, like, is really good, like character, all this character stuff, and then there's like, a big thing at the end, which, good payoff. But yeah, it's definitely a movie that it was a little longer, but I didn't ever find myself bored watching it. I know some movies that are like really long. There's usually a part where it's like they probably could have cut out like 15 minutes here, but this one I think it was told really well. I really enjoyed it, and looking at it after doing a little bit more research, I'm like, oh, that's really cool. And I actually, again, other than I think this was the only other one I watched twice. I'm watching it again with all of the other things, beside my number 1 pick. So I guess there are 3 movies that I actually watched more than once. So it's Toy Story 4, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and then my number 1 pick, that I watched more than once. So this one, watching it again, knowing the context, made it way better and more interesting. So I think that's why I made it my number 2 pick. Number 1 is The Vast of Night. Now, I remember seeing a review of it online. I'm like, oh, that looks like a really neat movie. Like, I really like the idea. And again, it's the only one I've watched. I've watched it twice because I remember watching it the first time and was like, oh wow, this movie's really good. Because the camera work is fantastic. I love the main 2 characters, just their like little dynamic, and they're both really good actors. It has comedic elements to it, just like with the dialogue and the banter. Like there are funny moments in it. There are generally like kind of creepy, suspenseful moments in it, and it keeps you sucked in the whole way through, in my opinion. Like, just, getting little bits and pieces of, oh, what is happening. So the premise is like a couple of like high school kids one of them is like works at the radio station. The other one, she's a board operator, like for the switchboards for phones. She hears somebody calls into like that, and she hears the call come in because she's like, "Hey, how can I, transfer your call?" And they're like saying something. You hear noise in the background, and then they're like, "What? That was a weird noise." And then she hears the noise come over the radio broadcast and calls the radio guy and is like, "Hey, did you hear this weird noise come over the thing?" So it kind of starts there where you're like, oh, what is this? Like, what is it? What's this, interfering? What's happening in this like tiny small town? And it's just really fun how they do, they unravel the mystery over the course of like, most of it is like audio. They go like this one guy calls into the radio station. He's like, I know what it is, sort of a thing. Um, and then they go and interview some lady, and it's just really well done, and it's pitched kind of like as like a old, like almost like a Twilight Zone type of a deal, which is kind of fun. I think that some people might see that as like a distracting, because like in the middle of the movies it'll like cut to like where it's like an old like TV screen and you're watching, you know, a scene unfold on that instead of just like cutting in time. But I think it's like a classic sci-fi that's just done really well. That's basically, I guess, the theme they were going for. But I really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed it. The camera work in it is phenomenal. There are a few really cool scenes where they do like, one big long take, and just some of the things have to be like, it's impressive from looking at it from like a filmmaking standpoint of like, how did they get this? Because there's like a scene where they come across like the gymnasium and they go up the risers and then out the window, and then it comes, out the window back down to like ground level and then keeps going. So like in the filmmaking brain, it's like, okay, they probably had somebody, with a steady cam running, and they had somebody had to go up the steps, and then they had to like push the camera through the window and probably hook it onto a crane, and then the crane dropped it down, and then somebody probably on like a golf cart or something grabbed it off the crane, and then they drove with it. Like it's like that. It's great. Um, it's a good movie just to even look at, along with just like the writing is really well done. Definitely my favorite. I really like that kind of suspense thriller type atmosphere the whole movie had to it. And yeah, it was just super great. I really, really liked it. That's why it's my number one pick. I definitely recommend it if you really like that sci-fi kind of thriller genre. You'll really like it. But yeah, that is my top 10 list from 2019 movies. I plan on doing a 2020 list, but that is once I've seen more movies that actually came out in 2020. And again, on March 6th, me and the other guys that we're going to be starting up a podcast doing a draft of 2010 movies. So the way the draft is going to work is we're going to have different genres, so drama, comedy, action, adventure, documentary, so on. And we're going to have it set up like an NFL draft. So whoever goes first, they'll get like their top pick. So they're like, okay, my top pick for action adventure is going to be Inception. And then they get that on their list. And then the next person's like, okay, well, my top pick for horror/thriller is going to be Shutter Island. Something like that. Just giving examples of movies I know came out in 2010. Going to do that, and then once everybody has drafted, they're going to have their list, one in each category. And then we're also going to have one fun category that I get to choose. I'm going to be moderating this first one here. So it could be anything like, oh, this is like maybe independent film or a movie that has 50% or less on Rotten Tomatoes, that they have to be like, okay, what's the best movie from 2010 that had a 50% or less on Rotten Tomatoes? Like stuff like that. I just want to be fun. Like one fun category like that. But once everybody gets their list of like 10 movies or whatever the draft's going to end up being, I think we're going to shoot for 10. Everybody will post our lists on whatever social media or whatnot, and then we're going to have, depending on, see how many votes each list gets, and then whichever list gets the most votes, that person will have won the draft. So it'll be interesting. I'm very intrigued and excited to start up this podcast. This is just again a little intro thing I wanted to do to kind of branch out. I would like to do more of these top 10 lists in the future, or just general like discussions of movies, things like that. So again, I am Sam Bradley. Thank you for tuning in to Film Snobs. Again, the name is pending, so that might change in the future, but that's what we are uh, going with for our Discord channel. So again, thank you for listening. Yeah, and please, if you feel the need, I will be putting this on social media, and I think I'm going to set up a little YouTube channel with just the audio tracks on it. So if you would be so kind as to like and subscribe to that, put a comment in the video. What are your top 10 lists of movies from 2019? That would be great. Other fun ideas for the fun genre category being added to the podcast stream for the draft. So anything like that. Also, any recommendations of what you would like to hear on the channel. That would be fantastic. Once again, thank you for your time. Thank you for tuning in.